Do you feel you were born for more? Get ready to uncover your God-given purpose so you can impact the world with your gifts, your talents, and your story. Welcome to our Purpose Power Summit. I'm your host, Mimika Cooney, and today's guest is going to share how to transform lack to impact. Becky Keife is a community manager for Encourage, a vibrant online community for Christian women that publishes faith-based Me Too stories daily. Founded in 2009 by Dayspring, the Christian subsidiary of Hallmark, the vision for Encourage was to create a new home where women take turns sharing their stories of what Jesus looks like in their gloriously ordinary, often messy lives. Today, Encourage reaches thousands of women daily, offering a space to breathe, loving support, and resources of meaningful connection. Becky is also a writer, speaker, and editor, and her writing has been featured in The Gift of Friendship, A Moment to Breathe, the Encourage Devotional Bible, Hello, Dearest, Home Life, and Clubhouse Junior magazines, as well as on popular websites. Becky speaks regularly at mothers of preschool groups and other women's ministry events around Southern California. Becky has long felt called to a ministry of words as a writer and speaker, but is also has a special joy for her to come alongside other writers to equip and champion their efforts in sharing their God-given messages with the world. So welcome, Becky. Welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thanks, Mimika. I'm so glad to be here with you.
Well, we have had lots of emails back and forth getting this organized, and I'm so excited to actually have us be able to chat today because you've got some really good content that you want to share, especially when we talk about lack, because us as women tend to be really hard on ourselves and think we sort of think we can't do things, and because we think we don't have it together or have enough to really do what God wants us to do in our lives. But before we get into the content that you have to share, tell us a little bit about your backstory and how you got to doing what you're doing today.
I've been known I was a writer since I was a little girl. And over the years, I've just stepped into taking the one next step and the one next step that God has shown me as far as encouraging women. I've started off as a writer and a speaker. I started working for Encourage as an editor a year and a half ago after being a longtime reader of this amazing community. And just in January, I stepped into this role of community manager, which is really an opportunity to get to encourage and champion our community of writers and our community at large to fulfill their purpose for God's kingdom. And it's such my joy to get to do that.
Well, it's so nice to be able to have that insider knowledge, right? You get to see and hear about a lot of women's stories. And that's what I love about when women get together and creating community is that we really know how to lift each other up and provide that platform for us to just be ourselves. Because this really goes into what we're going to share about today is always having these ideas of perfection, right? Wouldn't you say that we always have these grandiose ideas of what we should be? But you've got some great tips that you want to offer us and sharing with women that where God wants to take you no matter where you start, right?
Right, exactly. And I feel like whether you're listening today and you're feeling like, I really want to start something big, I want to start that ministry or write that book or start that business, or if you are just in the thick of it. I know for me, so many times I have found my plate and my hands really full. I'm currently in grad school getting my master's in English, and I work part-time from home, and I have 3 little ones. And sometimes we just feel like what we have to give is not enough for what is needed or what we feel God is calling us to do. We see a disparity in our resources and what it's going to take to reach that goal. And so part of my story has really been leaning into the Lord and figuring out, well, Lord, what do I do? I'm in those places when I want to step into what you're calling me to do, step into my purpose, but what I have is not enough.
So how would you say, because you mentioned earlier that you did one thing at a time or one step at a time. And what exactly does that mean? Because I think what I'm hearing you saying is, you kind of didn't have this as a big grand plan, right? Is this not where you were expecting to go, but it kind of led you that way?
Yeah, exactly. I knew that the Lord had given me a gift for words. I knew that it was in my heart to encourage women, but I really didn't know exactly what all of that was going to add up to, especially being a stay-at-home mom. And so I just really try to be faithful in the one next thing that he had for me. But what I learned along the way, especially when I was at one of those points where I really felt like Lord, I don't know how to take that next step. I don't know how to move forward with that book, or I don't know, I feel like you're calling me to speak, but how do I go about doing that? There has really been one pivotal passage that the Lord has led me to over and over again that addresses this very need. What do we do when what we have to give, maybe it's our resources of time, maybe you don't feel like you have the training to move forward in something. Maybe you feel like something is going to cost money and you don't have it, or you don't have the bandwidth of energy to give something more of yourself. What do you do in those places? And there's been a certain story that if you've grown up in the church, you've probably heard since you were small. But God really gave me new eyes to see it in a new way, and it has made all the difference.
So what would that be, that like there's pivotal moments, like when you're sitting there thinking, I really want to do this, but then you start having this, like I call it like the two-way, the good and the bad, oh, well, who do you think you are to even consider doing that? Well, I know I really want to do it, but I don't feel like I'm equipped. Well, that kind of, I'd say that internal dialogue that we have with ourselves is this constant at war with what we know God is planting in our hearts. So give us some tips of how we would be able to get from that mindset and that position to actually the steps, because it's great when we hear somebody's bio and, oh, they're a writer and speaker and they're doing all this, but what we don't often hear about is about the time in between. So give us a little bit of insight into that.
Right. So I was at that very same spot. I mean, I've been there so many times, Mimika, but I remember last spring, I was there and I was having an internal dialogue, and my husband got home from work late, and I was at my max, and I was like, I need to go and take a walk around the block. I need to just breathe some fresh air and breathe in some Jesus. And as I was walking around the block, I was having that very same internal struggle that you're talking about. I was in grad school. I had a writing deadline. So many different things were just on my plate. I had a speaking engagement coming up, and I was like, I don't even know how I'm going to get to the next thing. And so I sent a message to a friend. We talk about community, and sometimes God speaks to us through the words of someone else. And I told my friend, I said, Elise, what do you do when what you have to give is not enough for what is needed? And I knew that she would understand as a mom of 5 kids and a business owner and lots of things going on in her life. And she sent me a message back, and she said, Becky, remember the story of the 5 loaves and 2 fishes. Remember the story when Jesus turned a total lack into total satisfaction. And so I went home that night and I looked at that story. I'm like, well, I've seen that on flannel grabs. I know that, God turned, 5 loaves and 2 fish into, feeding the 5,000. But what does that really have to do with me and my current predicament of feeling like I have to meet this deadline and do this one next thing when I just feel like I don't even have enough to like make dinner or get my kids clean socks or whatever it is. And so this is what I want to share with you today. And then this is where God really solidified these 5 tips to go from lack to impact that I'm going to share with you. But let's look together at this story is found in all 4 Gospels, which is really significant. But I really love the way that it's communicated in Matthew. So I'm going to read from there, starting in Matthew 15. It says, as evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, this is a remote place, and it's already getting late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food. Jesus replied, they do not need to go away. You give them something to eat. We have here only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, they answered. Bring them to me, Jesus said. And he directed the people to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks. And he broke the loaves. And he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the people. They all ate and were satisfied. And the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. Mimika, what I love about this story, and it brings us to our very first point of how do you transform your lack to impact, is you turn in prayer. And the disciples were super focused on their resources, right? They were like, there are over actually 10,000 people gathered in this place because it was 5,000 men, but then plus women and children. They're like, we do not have enough. Like, we have a legitimate predicament, and what is required, like there's a disparity between what we have and what is needed.
What we see in the natural is literally like, it just doesn't match up, right? There's the impossible of, it doesn't make mathematical sense. Even for the fact that they even considered that, well, we have these loaves and fishes. I always think that even for the boy who donated his lunch, that was a step of faith too. But
right.
Definitely, I love that idea where it's just using what we have? Would you say, is that how we start?
Right. Well, yeah, I think first, before using what we have, first we turn in prayer. First we acknowledge that, Lord, I don't have enough, but I trust that you are with me in the situation, whatever my predicament is, whatever that one step I want to take, and I don't know how to even make it, I trust that you're with me. And the second thing that I think that God is asking us to do is to give thanks for our lack. And that is counterintuitive.
It does, right? It doesn't kind of make sense. Like, well, thanks that I don't have everything, but okay. It's kind of to get your head around that. But I think that it's an important part, because I think it takes us from going from complaining to being grateful. Because I think that's a super important part when you say sort of shifting our mindset.
Absolutely. And that's one thing for me, my biggest lack, I feel like constantly, is time. I feel like I never have enough time. I don't have enough time for ministry, for business, for work, for my kids, for my husband. I feel like I do not have enough time. And what God is telling me over and over again, Becky, give thanks for what you already have. And so if I have 20 minutes to make progress on one task, if I have 20 minutes to work on that message I'm going to give, or 20 minutes to respond thoughtfully to an email, I'm going to give thanks for that instead of saying, I don't have 5 hours to finish whatever I have to do.
So it's kind of like offering what we have and then allowing God to be able to fill in the gaps, right? Because even when we feel, because I think it takes our minds off being self-focused. Because I know for us, when we can look at all the lack of the loaves and we're like, well, this isn't going to work. And just sometimes stopping and thinking, okay, it's fine. I have what I have. Let me not complain about what I have, because also grumbling, complaining definitely blocks the doorways and blessings in order to receive more. So what would you say would be the next thing? So we've acknowledged we've got to pray about it, and then we've got to give Lord thanks. What would be the next thing?
Right. And then it's that step of offering what you have, of saying, I don't see how can be enough, but I'm going to offer you what I have. I'm going to offer you, God, my dream of starting this thing. I'm going to offer you my small amount of time. I'm going to offer you the words that I already have. And to see it not as a lack, but as an opportunity for God to do something that only He can do. And this is what I've seen proven true so many times in my life. Like when I'm in those places where I feel like I just don't have enough, God, for all the things that you've put on my heart to do. I don't have enough. But when I do these steps of turning in prayer and giving things and just giving Him what I have, He really does multiply. And it's thanksgiving that precedes His miracle of multiplication. So we offer what we have, and then we trust God to multiply. We trust that He has our good and His glory in mind. And so I have gotten to the ends of term papers for my master's, or editing assignments for work, and I'm like that. I look back, I'm like, who did all that work? Who did it? Because what I had to give, either my insight or my wisdom or just my time, it wasn't enough. But through it, I saw that God really multiplied and provided in a way that only He could.
So it's almost like the supernatural grace takes over. Like you're in it and you're busy doing something, and instead of us thinking, okay, what I don't have, okay, I'm just taking what I have. I'm just going to do the best. And that's what I love about having an attitude of excellence, that as women, we can be very perfectionist minded, and I'm a recovering perfectionist. I work on it. Something I have to work on every day, but sometimes good is better than perfect, that at least taking those steps, putting what you have out there, and it doesn't have to be all worked out. And then also recovering control freaks anonymous, we are working on that aspect too, right? In order to walk into giving what God. And so what would you say would be the next thing? So we've kind of put it out there. How do we not take it back?
Move forward for His glory. So that's step number 5. And that's what I see in this story of feeding the 5,000. So I try to put myself like in the disciples' shoes. So Jesus, they're like, okay, here's like the little lunch that this boy offered. And now you've prayed and you've been thankful for what is so not enough. And now you've broken it. You've changed it. Now you're giving it to us. Well, the disciples, it still took trust to take that next step. I don't know if they saw the heaping basketfuls at that point. I wonder if it still looked like not enough, but they kept passing it out and doing the one next thing and the one next thing. And I will raise my hand. I am a recovering, I call it the triple P's: people pleasing, perfectionism, and performance issues.
Oh, yes. Don't we have the badges for that, right?
Right. And so what's required in that is to say, I don't have to have my ducks in a row. I don't have to know that it's perfectly going to work out before I'm willing to say, I trust you, God. And even if I fail, I trust you, God. And I'm going to give you my best because I want to live in your purpose. And I want to do things that I can't explain by my own strength. I want my life to only be explainable by the supernatural, because God's grace was activated and I just gave what I had. And that's what we see in this story.
And I think what's also great to notice is that, when God says he takes our weaknesses and he's glorified in it, because put it this way, if we had everything under control and everything was perfect, it would be fluffing the ego. Like, oh, look what I did. Look how amazing I am. Like, I did this and I did this. That doesn't give God any glory, and it doesn't give him any space to move. And this is something I've had to learn, and, the Lord's been working on my heart is learning to let go so he can expand my borders. Like, I would think that, okay, this is all I have available to do, but it's almost like just taking that step of faith and saying, okay, you take what I have and he'll give us even more. And we've heard that, right? He will do exceedingly abundantly more than we can ask for or think. And I'm like, well, what does that mean exactly? Mind blown. Have you found you've had those instances too where it's actually taken you far further than you ever thought?
Oh, absolutely. And, one of my prayers along those lines for years has been, Lord, open doors that can only be connected to your power and not my own striving. Lord, help me to be faithful to take that one next step. And so for me as a writer, sometimes it's, in the early years, like I will write that one blog post. I will, share that one insight you've put on my heart on Instagram or Facebook. I will reach out to this coordinator and see if they need a speaker, like whatever that one next step is. But trusting him for the outcome, and the Lord has opened doors like adding courage. It was never a dream for me to get to be the community manager of a place that has ministered deeply to my heart for 9 years. And by his faithfulness, just taking the one next step, by being faithful, by going to grad school when I thought, I don't have any more resources of time for this. But he said, Becky, this is something I want to use to prepare you for what's next. He didn't tell me what's next, but there's been so many things through this journey, and I'll finish up in May, which is so exciting.
Congrats. So you must be like, yay, graduation.
I know, I'm so excited to get a little time back in my life. But just, he has shown it again and again that I'm not going to give you the whole plan, Becky, but you can trust me and that I will be faithful to you. And I just want you to give me what you have. Just give me your 5 loaves and I will perform a miracle of multiplication in your life. And that's what he's done.
Well, I mean, it's so awesome in how we can put these into practice, right? And in actual fact, Becky has downloaded an awesome gift that you can download if you go to mimikacooney.com. As part of our summit series, she's provided a digital download that you can go and print off today. So tell us a little bit about that. It's the 5 steps from lack to impact guide. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, the 5 steps to go from lack to impact. And it goes over these 5 steps that I've shared with you today. It is beautifully designed by my friend Elise Hurd of Little Lunchmaker. And I asked her to help me with the design because her online shop is based upon this very story, the Little Lunchmaker. How do you take your ordinary faithfulness and turn it into the stuff of miracles? So this gift for you, I'm so excited. It's these 5 practical steps based upon the story of feeding the 5,000. And not only does it take you through the steps, but it also gives you little bite-sized prayers to pray to help you really turn your heart and apply this to your individual situation, whatever you're facing today, where you feel like, Lord, I want to make a big impact for you. Would you turn my personal lack into your kingdom impact? And this is going to be a really practical guide to help you do that.
And that's what I love about doing something like this is there's something magical happens when you put pen to paper. It's like you are committing to taking action, which is what we want for you today. Because it's great to hear these encouraging words, but unless you actually take this little baby steps of faith and start doing something, which could be as simply as get the download, print it off, and start to think and say the prayers, and you start to be encouraged with every step that you do. So make sure to go to mimikacooney.com, click on the Summit tab, and you'll get Becky's gift along with all the other 20 speakers who are part of our Summit series. Really are here to help you be activated into walking into your purpose. So before we wrap up, tell everybody, how can we get in touch with you and find out more about what you do?
Thanks, Mimika. We'd love to have you at Encourage encourage with an I-N, courage.me. It's a great place where you'll find everyday resources of stories to help you live out your purpose and your calling in the Lord. And for me personally, Instagram is one of my favorite places to connect. So find me at Becky Keife. And also you can find me at beckykeife.com. So would love to see you there. If you come to Encourage, or if you find me on Instagram, give me a shout out. Let me know that you found me through the Purpose Power Summit. And I'd love to continue just encourage you and walk together, because when we link arms as women, we can fulfill our purpose for the Lord in really amazing ways.
Definitely. I couldn't have said it any better than myself, than you have said it. But I've got to say to everybody, if you enjoyed what Becky had to say today, make sure to share it with your friends. I'm sure you know somebody else who needs to hear these encouraging words. So click the buttons below or next to the video and go ahead and share that. Or if somebody forward you to this email, make sure to subscribe to our list and go and download those gifts today. We've got some great resources we want to make available to you. So if you've enjoyed what she had to say, reach out to Becky. We have all the links below the video, and tell her you saw on the summit. We'd love to hear your aha moments. What takeaway tips did you get from what you had to say? And we'd love to celebrate your wins. Definitely get in touch with us and let us know so we can be there and encourage you along your journey. So I'm going to say thanks again, Becky, for joining me on the summit. I so appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day. And until next time, everyone, take care. Become a partner and join the Mimika TV